Hello and good morning. Happy Sunday. Happy fall. It is here. There is much abundance in this garden and I am so happy to be right here with you guys. A couple of things I want to say at the very start today. One, my friend Ian O'Keefe has a company called Whetstone Graphics. Whetstone is their company. Is that right, Joe? And he sharpens knives and tools. So if you haven't a bunch of trimmers like this and all different kinds of things like this and kitchen tools and things like that that need to be sharpened, please reach out to my friend Ian.
That's the new edge right there?
Yes.
Nice.
Nice new edge. It's nice where it opens and closes easily. It had gotten all rusty and it wasn't pinching good. Okay, so super inexpensive. Great friend, does an amazing job. Reach out to us if you want some information about how Ian can help you get your tools in fantastic shape. Second thing, all the shout outs to my delicious and wonderful friends. See these beautiful and amazing earrings over here? These came from My Chic Essentials. That's my friend Lisa Sutter, and I bought them right before I headed off on my little fancy trip to Charleston, and I love them, and don't they match me so well? So reach out to my friend or reach out to me if you'd like to know more about how you can get some lovely jewelry from my gal, Lisa. Okay, now let's get to the fantastic abundance that is happening in your backyard garden. So as the temperatures cool and we're staying consistently under 85 degrees, all of those little flowers that were being set on your peppers, your tomatoes, your eggplants, they are turning into fruit. Do you see this bell pepper right here? Isn't it amazing? And I planted the seed of this bell pepper plant back in probably January of last year. Stuffed this little pepper plant in the ground over here. Now, perfectly timed, I'm gonna have some beautiful, beautiful bell peppers. Same thing with this nice eggplant. Do you see my little flowers that are starting to set now? I've got lots of eggplant that is starting to come on all over the garden. There's so much of the eggplant. Tomatoes, I've got Roma tomatoes on the vine. I've got tomatoes flowering like crazy. My basil is in abundance. All of my red flowers. Look at this red sage, red salvia. Guess what that means? That means my hummingbirds are in heaven. This is my garden sanctuary and it is truly my piece of heaven. And I'm loving it. So I'm encouraging you all to get in there and do your planting too so that you can, I mean, think about what this garden was in January. It was a flat piece of nothing. It was a flooding piece of ground. And now I've got bell peppers and eggplants and red salvias with hummingbirds and snapdragons. And here's my delicious Thai roselle where I can pop off all of these. I showed you these last week, these calyxes, and use them to make some teas and some jellies and throw them in my smoothies, and all healthy and good and delicious stuff, right? Okay. One more thing I want to show you before we move out of this garden and start talking about what I'm planting, when I'm planting it, how often, how much, all of that, is I want to talk about milkweed. Okay, the monarchs are basically passed through now, and so you don't see all my little beautiful monarchs around anymore. But what I have here instead is my milkweed that has a bunch of aphids on it. Now, generally speaking, outside of an abundance of aphids, and this particular garden has had an abundance of aphids this year, that has something to do with a nitrogen imbalance, which I'm working on and learning about in this garden, you know, hands in the dirt, getting that soil under your fingernails. But I am seeing an abundance of aphids on these, a ridiculous amount, and because of that, and you may not see this just yet on yours, and that's okay, it's time for me to go ahead and start cutting out my milkweed, okay? Why is it time for me to start cutting out my milkweed? 2 reasons. One, anytime you see a massive abundance of any kind of insect that is causing harm to the plant, the plant is not healthy enough to sustain anymore, and it's time to go ahead and remove it from your garden. The second reason is what we grow here very abundantly in milkweed is a tropical milkweed that actually never dies back outside of just getting really sad and ugly from an abundance of aphids. And it can carry a specific parasite that will actually harm the butterflies next season. So the goal for all milkweed is to have it all cut out by the end of November. So if your milkweed doesn't have aphids on it right now, no big deal. Let it keep blooming. Enjoy the red and gold beauty that's coming into your garden. But by the end of November, make sure that you cut your milkweed out. I'm going all the way down here to the very bottom. It will come back just fine next year. Popping that little sucker out. I've decided after looking at it, making sure I know this is a latex type plant. I don't want to feed it to my chickens. I don't want to leave this amount of aphids in my compost. So I'm actually just going to throw these out and let them go ahead and go out to the trash. I don't do that very often, but I think this is a good scenario where that's the right decision for me to make here with this particular plant. Okay, so keep that in mind about your milkweed, very important. Alrighty. Take a plant like this. You see how big and beautiful this little pepper plant is right here? I planted these seeds last year, put them in a bigger pot. This is something that it's time for it to actually go in the ground. So I would find a good space inside my garden, just like this. I just put this one in yesterday, and look, it's got its little flowers, it's got some fruit setting on it. I've got some nice basil, a tomato plant. I'm going to dig a nice deep hole big enough for the entire pot to go down inside my bed, and I'm going to make sure my roots are really nicely covered. Use that soil to cover up some of the other roots over here, and I'm going to go ahead and put that pepper plant in. Because as you know, if you can move something from the pot into the ground, it will be very successful and happy plant. So begin doing that. That's one thing you're definitely going to begin doing. And if you've got beautiful peppers and tomatoes that are young from planting of these this season. Now these are all the different types that I have planted this season from seeds. I've got cherry tomatoes, Amish paste, I've got bronze torch, all different kinds of tomatoes over here. Some doing better than others. Some are looking really, really healthy and happy, and some are looking a little bit more sad. I've got some peppers here. This is a carnival sweet bell pepper. It's a little like snacking pepper. I'm very happy to see it doing well. These are the types of things that are going to start going into the ground as well. They're going to be going in at the farm where I've got lots and lots of space with massive trellising. And they're also some of them going to be going into this garden here. Now a lot of what's going to be going into this garden over here is the larger old season peppers, tomatoes, things like that. And then in addition to that, finding places where I can put in my broccoli, cauliflower, all of those different types of brassicas that I'm going to be putting in my garden. Take a look here at all the different things that are planted. I picked up a few of these heirloom organic varieties from my friend at Get Growing. That's Leo Ruiz. You can definitely reach out to him. And so it gives me a little bit of a start, so you can see that these are a little bit older. And I've talked to you many times about succession planting. That means that you're planting throughout the season. You've got different sizes of plants doing different things. Now, one thing you will want to keep in mind is that if some of your tomato plants are just too small to put out as the season gets later and we do run into potentially freeze season, you're going to want to put those plants in a situation where you can move them into some warmth if you have to. But if you're putting in a lot of mulch around your garden, if you're putting in a lot of carbon material, you're going to have more warmth than you might imagine. I don't expect to have a freeze back here in this backyard. If what our freeze is this year is 30, 31, 32 for a couple of hours overnight. That's not enough freeze in a nice warm garden like this to cause any massive problems. One of the things you will have to have a concern about as this winter starts to set in. Oh, hello. If you want, look, these are all good guy roaches, by the way. These are all the composters.
That's chicken food.
Yeah, it is. That's chicken food. Exactly. You may not be interested in the bugs that crawl up your legs. They don't bother me. I find such joy in my garden that I just kind of shoo them away. But they are good chicken food, and they're very, very good decomposers. So they're an extremely important part of the garden. As a matter of fact, I think on it might have been one of the last episodes of season 1 from Dinner Table Talks, we actually talk about the different insects. We talk about mosquitoes and roaches, and there's a whole conversation about whether roaches are valuable and should exist and all
mosquitoes
of that. So,
too. Yeah.
Mosquitoes as well. So we have value. We place value on all the different types of insects. We think that they're very important to the whole ecosystem that you're creating in your garden. But I just love my garden so much that I really want to come out and share all of these different things with you. So tomatoes, peppers, I've got some eggplants that are starting to get really happy and tall. I need to move those into the ground. Your eggplants should do just fine in any kind of freezing situation as long as you make sure you heavily mulch around them and give them that warmth that they need, and that you're really compacting. Now come over here really quickly. See all these little babies I've got? This is tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers, brassicas, kale, flowers. I got zinnias, I got marigolds, I got bluebonnets, all kinds of stuff going on over here. This is a very warm space over here. So my eggplants, as long as they're in these nice warm microclimates, I shouldn't have major problems with freezing. Now, they may stop setting fruit, just like they do in the summertime, but that's okay because as soon as the temperatures go down in the spring or come back up in the spring, we'll have beautiful. So the goal here through these kind of potentially broken seasons is keep your plants alive and happy so that when the weather starts to cool down in the fall, you start setting fruit again, and then plant, heavy plant all the way through as it gets into January, and January, February, a little bit of December, and we start to see those potential freezing weathers. You keep everything warm and happy, and then boom, the spring sets in, flowers come back, you're back in abundance again. So that's really all I have to say today. I do want to remind you all about Dinner Table Talks. That's Joe and I's podcast, dinnertabletalks.com. This last week's episode that will have its final day today, actually, I was very, very proud of that episode for two reasons. One, I talk about my friends out at Canoli Farm. Dang it, I'm always going to do that. Canoli Farm and the majesty and the magnificence that they have created out there, and how thankful I was to be welcomed to be a part of that luxury with them. Yes, it's hard work. Don't get unreal about it. Let's have a real conversation. Go check out Dinner Table Talks. Then we follow up that with a very, very deep and challenging conversation that I've been having about dealing with trauma and dealing with sexual trauma and some of those really hard conversations. So I hope you'll go back and listen to that episode, but also know that episode 4 launches tomorrow morning. Season 2, episode 4. What are we talking about? We're talking about Charleston. Is there a Charleston? Is this how it goes? Is there something like this? I think the chickens are giving me the Charleston, like, I think it's more like this, right? Like something like this.
There is now.
I hope you guys have the most wonderful Sunday. I love you all. I can't wait to hear more from you. If you need anything from me, send me a message. I'm happy to help. Love you. Bye.